Let's talk about how to communicate in difficult conversations. Last month, two managers had to tell their teams about upcoming layoffs, a very difficult topic. The first one created anger, panic, and 3 immediate resignations. The second faced difficult questions, no doubt, but ultimately strengthened trust during an impossible situation. The difference wasn't the news they delivered, it was how they communicated during this really tough time. Today, I'm going to show you the exact techniques that help you navigate difficult conversations in a way that builds respect instead of resentment. Let's be honest about something. Difficult conversations are, well, difficult. There's no magic phrase that makes delivering bad news, giving tough feedback, or addressing conflict suddenly easy. What I'm sharing today isn't about avoiding the discomfort that comes along. It's about moving through it effectively. These techniques have helped thousands of people have become conversations they were dreading with results that surprised them. I'm going to share 5 practical techniques for difficult conversations. Each one addresses a specific challenge that typically derails these discussions. The first technique is something you need to do before saying a single word. It completely changes how the conversation unfolds. The first technique is what I call the 2-minute reset. Here's what typically happens. We go into a difficult conversation already feeling defensive, anxious, or frustrated. Our heart rate increases, our breathing gets shallow, and our thinking narrows. Basically, we're primed for conflict before we've even said a word. Let me show you what Sarah did differently before addressing a serious performance issue with one of her team members. She knew the conversation would be challenging, so before walking into the team meeting, she took 2 minutes to do this simple reset. First, she took 5 slow, deep breaths. Breathing is an amazing thing which people just don't give enough value to. Then she reminded herself of her actual goal. My goal isn't to prove I'm right and to make Jake feel bad. My goal is to help him understand the issue and find a path forward. Finally, she thought about something she genuinely appreciated about Jake. This 2-minute practice completely changed her physical and mental state entering the conversation. Instead of coming in tense and focused on the problem, she started from a place of clarity, balance, and calm. Here's how to do your own 2-minute reset. Find a quiet spot before your difficult conversation. Take 5 slow, deep breaths. Count to 4 as you inhale, hold for 1, count for 5 as you exhale. Clarify your real goal, not winning, but understanding and forward movement. Remind yourself of something positive about the other person. This works because our physical state directly affects our communication. When we are tense, everything we say sounds like an attack. When we are centered, even challenging messages can be delivered with clarity, respect, and a certain sense of calm around them. I remember hearing a story from my client who was the head of HR for an airline company that had lost its plane and the passengers who were on it. She told me how the CEO got ready to talk to the families of those passengers. She said he went to a corner, sat down, took deep breaths, and said, "They are angry, and so they should be. They are upset with me, and so they should be." He told the security not to follow him, and as he went inside, one of the family members screamed, and all the CEO did was repeatedly to say, "I am sorry, I am sorry, I am sorry." This story never leaves me. This was a 2-minute reset that had helped him deal with that situation. Now let's get back to not such a drastic situation, but say you've done your 2-minute reset. But what exactly should you say when the conversation actually begins? That's where our second technique comes in, and it's the opposite of what most people do. The second technique is to open with agreement approach. Most difficult conversations start with opposing positions. We are not lawyers fighting in a court. You didn't meet the deadline, your behavior in the meeting was inappropriate. This immediately creates resistance and defensiveness. Well, let me show you what Michael did differently when addressing a conflict with a colleague. Instead of starting with their point of disagreement, he began with, Lisa, we both want this project to succeed. Shared goal. And I know we both care about delivering quality work to the client. I think we have different ideas about the best way to get there, and I'd like to figure out a solution that works for both of us. More solution oriented and looking forward. By starting with what they both agreed on, the shared goal, he created a foundation of alignment before addressing the areas of conflict. The conversation that followed was challenging but really productive, and they found a way forward that neither had initially really considered. Here's how to use the open with agreement approach. Before your conversation, identify something you genuinely agree on the other person with. Start the conversation by explicitly stating this agreement. Use language like, we both want, and we share the goal of. Then transition with, I think we see things differently when it comes to. This technique works because it shifts the frame from me versus you to us versus the problem. It reminds both people that you're ultimately on the same side, even if you disagree with the path forward. But there's a third technique that's crucial while emotions start to rise, which they inevitably do in difficult conversations. Palms become sweaty, heart rate is going up. The third technique is the name it without blaming approach. When tension rises in difficult conversations, most people either ignore the emotion, which makes them stronger, or get pulled into emotional reactions themselves. Both responses make the situation even worse. Let me show you what Jennifer did when delivering disappointing news to her team about a cancelled project they'd worked on for months. As frustration and disappointment filled the room, instead of trying to rush past it or getting defensive, she said, I can see the disappointment here and it makes total sense. You all put incredible work into this project, and it is so frustrating to have factors outside of our control change the direction. I feel the same way. By acknowledging the emotions without making anyone wrong for having them, she created space for people to move through their initial reactions rather than getting stuck in them. Here's how to use the name it without blaming approach. Notice when emotions intensify during the conversation. Acknowledge the emotion. You're observing without any judgment. Validate why that emotion makes sense given the situation. Briefly share your own authentic feeling, if appropriate. This works because unacknowledged emotions become louder and more disruptive. When you name them respectfully, you reduce their power. When you can name it, you can shame it and show that you're paying attention to the whole person, not just the issue at hand. Handling emotions skillfully is essential, but at some point, you need to address the core issue directly. That's where our fourth technique becomes crucial, especially when you need to deliver difficult feedback or some sort of an unwelcome news, which is a lot in the corporate world. The fourth technique is direct but respectful. It's a delivery technique. It's a common misconception that being kind means dancing around the truth, not the tooth. But in reality, clarity is a form of respect. The key is delivering direct messages in a way that maintain the other person's dignity. Let me show you what David did when he needed to tell a team member they weren't getting a promotion they expected. Instead of cushioning the message with vague language, he said, I want to be clear about the promotion decision. You won't be moving into the senior role at this time. The primary gaps were in the leadership areas we discussed in our last review, particularly around guiding junior team members. I'm committed to helping you develop in those areas over the next 6 months. If advancing remains your goal, then I'm happy to help you. Notice how David stated the decision clearly without excessive cushioning. Provide the specific reason, offer a path forward like David did. Here's how to use the direct but respectful approach. Deliver the core message in simple, clear language. Provide specific reasons without overwhelming details. Focus on behaviors and situations, not character judgment. Offer a constructive next step or path forward when possible. This technique works because it honors the other person's intelligence and avoids the confusion that comes from unnecessary sugarcoating. When delivered with respect, direct communication actually builds trust rather than damaging it. The fifth and the final technique is the genuine question approach. One of the biggest mistakes people make in difficult conversations is doing too much talking and not enough asking. Genuine questions, ones you ask because you actually want to understand, not to make a point, can completely transform the challenging discussion. Let me show you how Elena used this when addressing a conflict between team members. After sharing her perspective on the situation, she asked, "I've shared what I've observed, but I'm sure I don't have the full picture. Can you help me understand what it looks like from your perspective?" Then she did the hardest part. She listened without interrupting or planning her response. What she learned changed her understanding of the entire situation and led to a solution that addressed the real issues, not just the surface problems. Now, I want to share with you how to use this genuine question approach. Prepare 1 or 2 open questions that show you want to understand more. Ask these questions at a point in the conversation when you can truly listen to the answer. Make your questions genuinely curious, not disguised statements. Well, listen fully before responding. Do not interrupt. Good questions include, what did the situation look like from your perspective? What's the most important thing for you in resolving this? What part of what I have shared do you see differently here? Now, this technique works because it shifts you from opponent to partner in solving a problem. It also gives you vital information that might change your own understanding of that particular situation. I want to show you how these 5 techniques work together in a real difficult conversation. Imagine you need to address an ongoing lateness with a team member. First, you do the 2-minute reset before meeting to center yourself. You begin with agreement. "John, I know we both care about the team's success and creating a positive work environment." You move to direct but respectful delivery. "I've noticed you've been arriving 15 to 20 minutes late shifts consistently over the past 2 weeks. This impacts the team because others have to cover your initial responsibilities." You use name it without blaming it if emotions arise. "I can see this is frustrating to hear, and that makes sense." You end with a genuine question. "I'd like to understand if there's something making it difficult to arrive on time, or if there's something else going on I should know about." When my client Marcus used this exact approach with a challenging team member, what he discovered was that the person was having transportation issues after moving to a new apartment. They found a simple solution and the problem was resolved without damaging the relationship that existed. Remember these key principles for difficult conversations. Your state of mind entering the conversation significantly impacts the outcome. Starting with agreement creates a foundation for addressing disagreement. Acknowledging emotions reduces their power to derail the discussion. Clear, respectful directness builds trust more than coating. Genuine questions transform you from opponent to partner. But here's what makes this technique truly powerful. The most important thing is to understand about difficult conversation is that they are not obstacles to good relationships. They are opportunities to build them. When handled well, addressing conflicts, delivering tough feedback, and navigating disagreements doesn't damage trust. It deepens it. So you don't have to avoid conflict, just navigate it well. These 5 techniques won't make difficult conversations easy, but they will make them productive. And over time, you'll find yourself dreading these moments less because you have concrete tools to handle them effectively. Now, the question is, what difficult conversations have you been avoiding? Share in the comments below. I'd love to help you apply these techniques to your specific situation. And if you want more practical communication strategies, hit that subscribe button. Next week, I'm sharing how to get your ideas heard in meetings, even if you're not the loudest voice in the room. What a big Asian problem that is. Until then, stay storied, and I shall see you very soon again.